This video deals with completing a final mix and preparing it ready for bouncing down. Now, the thing to remember is that once you've applied your panning, your original volume setting, your EQ, your compression, your stereo reverb, you'll probably need to go back and adjust volumes of parts so that you're happy with overall levels and you're happy with the mix. Now, when you've done that, then you'll be ready to bounce. Now, when you are bouncing, it's important to remember that you need to make sure that you're making proper use of the region, or rather the loop tool. So when you're setting your regions, you left click and you drag to select the range of, or rather the length of the region that you would like to bounce. And you need to make sure as well that you've got everything that you want to be playing, and anything that you don't want muted. And make sure as well that you haven't got things muted that you want and you haven't got anything soloed. So when you've done this, we're going to go to File and Bounce. So what this will do is it will immediately default to your project folder, and a bounces folder will appear, and this is where your bounce will go by default. Now if you want to choose a different location, say to a memory stick or elsewhere, you'd simply just select where exactly you wanted it to go on your computer. So it's going to go into the bounces folder. We're going to title this as something from nothing mix 1. Now the reason I've done that is that now that I've done that mix, I'm going to take it away and I'm going to listen to it on as many different, or in as many different places as I can. So I'd listen to it at home, in my parents' hi-fi. I'd listen to it in my car by burning it onto a CD and playing it in a CD player. I would listen to it in as many different places as I could, so that I could hear how it sounds in different environments, because it will sound very different. You will then probably find that I've listened to this once, I need to change the mix or the level of this part so that it's not as loud, or it's not as clear, it's not as muddy. And I would recommend and advise you do that. So you've created your mix and you've gone back and you've decided you've changed a few things. You come back again and this is your next mix, so this is perhaps your final mix. The destination is PCM. Bouncing in real time will mean that it will bounce from start to finish in real time, so it will play it out loud to you. And this is sometimes good for getting the most out of effects plugins like Space Designer. But because we are dealing with digital plugins, the mode of bouncing and offline wouldn't make too much of a difference. But you can argue the difference between bouncing in real time and offline another time. The audio tail is not something that we need to include in this instance, but if you are thinking about the end of your bounce, where I've selected to the end of my region, I would probably recommend that you leave as long as it takes for the reverb to end in your project. So just so that's visually clear, I would probably leave something like 2 or 3 beats after it had finished for the reverb to disappear. And in which case it's actually gone by 2. So there we are. So File, Bounce, PCM, Offline, Normalize, Overload Protection Only. If we normalize our recording, it's going to ruin all that hard work we've done in creating our own dynamics or our own compression. And the only reason we're protecting from overloading is we want to make sure that the level of the output doesn't go over 0 dB and cause clipping. Your file format needs to be WAV, the resolution needs to be 16-bit, sample rate 44/100, file type interleaved, and dithering apogee. Now the reason for this is waveforms or wave files are those that are used quite commonly on CDs and will be used therefore for the examiners to listen to. Your resolution is 16-bit because this is the resolution at which CDs work. You cannot put a 24-bit recording onto onto your CD, as it will not work. Your sample rate is 44/100, that is the standard for a CD. The file type is interleaved because that's a combination of the left and right, not left and right on separate bounces and separate tracks. And your dithering is apogee. Now what dithering does is it applies specific low end frequencies to account for the gaps made by converting a recording from 24-bit to 16-bit. So it's the number of volumes per sample that can be achieved when sound is made, or when it is bounced, or when it is recorded. So in order to account for that loss of quality, dithering fills the gaps, as it were, so that you don't have any unwanted distortion or noise in your bounce. Make sure that, and it shouldn't be possible because you're in 16-bit, that surround bounce is not ticked, and then you would simply bounce to the location that you have selected. Just as a final closing thought, when you are using and you're producing your final mix, it would be important to consider the level of your output. So what I would recommend you do is that you try to aim to get this level of your output as high and as close to 0 as possible without clipping. So select all of your tracks. So if we've got a difference here of -11, let's say take these other parts up by 5 decibels and then play from a particularly loud section. Here lies a city. It started with a spark. And keep increasing the volume until you can get as close to 0 as possible. Here lies a city and burned into the dark. Now here I go. And what we're doing there is we're aiming to make sure that our project is as loud as it possibly can be for the examiner to listen to, because you are being marked on your quality of recording as well. So that's the finished product. Good volume, good mix, good clarity, good level, and good reverb as well. Now, when we have done that and you've bounced, you need to make sure that when you are putting your work onto CD, that you use iTunes, you create a playlist, and you move your bounces onto a playlist and create a CD. Now, that's the end of this video. The next video will deal with how to put your mixes onto CD and burn them ready for submission. Thank you very much for watching.